Hi, my name is Katy Parker. I'm the counseling coordinator here at Southeastern Seminary. Today we're going to be having a counseling roundtable where we talk about anxiety and other related issues around the COVID-19 pandemic. Today I have joining me Dr. Tate Cockrell and Dr. Sam Williams, who are both counseling professors here on campus. We also have joining us Mindy Williams, who is a biblical counselor in the area, who also happens to be the wife of Dr. Williams. And we hope that this is going to be a helpful conversation for you and your families as you learn to navigate these unusual circumstances and how to manage your anxiety and other related issues that are going on right now. So we hope that this is going to be something that's helpful for you. Thank you for joining us. Let's get started. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I think just to start today, I think the main word that is on everybody's mind is anxiety. So as we talk about that, how would you guys describe anxiety?
I think largely it's anxiety is fear of the future, that something bad's going to happen. There's a threat out there looming on the horizon, and I don't know when the other shoe's going to drop here. And so obviously that's something that we're all concerned about at this point, given what's going on with the virus. So there's a sense in which some anxiety is almost appropriate at this point, because there are a lot of unknowns. And but it's basically this cognitive, ruminative brooding about something bad down the road is coming at me, and I don't know when it's going to hit.
I heard somebody say this last week, and I thought it was a really good statement, that when anxiety happens, it's when fear overrides our faith, right? So there's a certain amount of fear, I guess, is appropriate, right? Like if a mugger's coming toward me, that would be appropriate fear. But if I have fear that overrides my faith during like normative times, that's kind of what anxiety feels like. So I thought that was a pretty good way of kind of encapsulating what it is.
And one of the odd things about anxiety is, on the one hand, it's pointed toward the future. Something's coming at me here, and I don't know when or where. But at the same time, it's very internal, and we get caught up in our own head. And what we miss is here and now.
Yeah.
And this is, God's grace is daily. It shows up here and now, and this is the person that God has called me to care for and love right now, and this is the task that God has called me to here and now. And so that's the dilemma when we get so focused on the future and at the same time caught up in our own head.
So how is this situation different than, say, when you have somebody come into you for counseling who, it may just be that general, there's just something bad is going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but something bad is going to happen. But now we have some very real concerns of, I could get sick. One of my loved ones could get sick. Or even with the economy, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where my next paycheck is going to come from. So how do we think differently about that? Do we think about that in the same way? How do we kind of reconcile those things?
I think what's different now is it has a name. I mean, it's very tangible. This isn't something that's out there. It has a name, and we're following the count every day. But it doesn't change who God is, that He's on the throne, that He gives grace every single day, that He is still my shepherd, and He gives me everything I need today. That hasn't changed.
That's right. Yeah. In a way, this virus exposes something that's always been true anyway, which is that which I am in control of in this world compared to that which I'm not in control of. There's no comparison. We have so little control over this world, but these sorts of things that are so immediate, they've got a name, it just kind of reveals, oh my, this world is big and potentially dangerous. And yet, like my wife said, God hasn't changed. His faithfulness never wanes. It's always available to us.
I think that's so good. I mean, it shatters. I think what COVID-19 has done is it has shattered the delusion that we have control. You know, I mean, it has really shattered the delusion that we often live in and even find comfort in, that, you know, we control all of these things in our lives, and they make us feel safe and secure and all of that. And now that the virus has kind of exposed really, where is your faith? Really, where is your trust? Is it in all these temporary things that you think you have control over, or is it in the God who truly does have control over all of these things that we're talking about?
Yeah, we are well-trained 21st century Americans.
Yeah.
We think we got it.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time that we're in. It's funny because my 4-year-old on the way to school, she has this thing where she talks about how she has change powers, and so the power to change things, and the fact that things are different. And so some of her friends aren't going to school because they're staying home. The fact that we can't go anywhere has affected her. And so this morning she kept saying, and made up a whole song about it, about how she has change powers to basically get rid of all the germs. And so now her change powers have changed that. So all the germs are gone. I told her that we would call the CDC immediately and let them know that we have the solution. But I think the truth is that this impacts not just us as adults, as parents maybe, but even our kids. So what's a good way for us to talk with our kids about these anxieties that we are feeling, but in turn they are also feeling?
You know, I think one of the things is that it's okay for us to normalize the fears that they have, like downplaying
really
that,
good point, yeah.
and trying to make out like it's, you know, oh, you don't need to worry about that. I mean, it's we face a very real threat in the virus in terms of people getting sick and potentially dying. So it's not diminishing or minimizing their fears. It's putting their fears in right context. You know, it's okay for us to have a healthy sense of fear of things that can hurt us, you know, but what we don't want to do is allow that to paralyze us to the point that, you know, we don't have an uncertain future as it relates to who Christ is. As Mindy said earlier, God hasn't changed. You know, He's still the same. He's still our shepherd. He's still our provider. He's still our protector. All of those things are still the same. So I think the first place to start is to help normalize that for them. It's normal for them to feel some of these emotions that they're having.
yeah, and the other thing that hasn't changed is the mission that we're called to.
Right.
You know, we can focus on what I can do, and surely there's a lot I can't do. Limited human being, fallible, fallen, etc. And yet, you know, I can love my neighbor, I can love my wife, I can love my kids, I can call on the Lord. And in a time like this, when there does seem to be so much that's out of control, so much that is topsy-turvy, and that's true. And yet, what is also true is that there's a lot I can do. And I think that if we just focus on what's out of control,
That's right.
once again, it's not that that's not accurate, but also miss what God has called us to. You know, I'm here to serve Him, care for other people, to take a note to my neighbor next door, to ask my kids to, you know, join me on a walk. There are many of these sorts of things that I think can, if we get caught up in our head and all that could come in the future and forget here and now, what can I do here and now to do what God is, how can I be the man, the woman, the kid that God has called me to be here and now? Out of my head and into the mission, you know?
And I think one of the best things, particularly for younger kids, but I think it's true for all of us, so much of what we teach our kids isn't in what we tell them, it's in what we show them. And so when they see us as parents having conversations about worrying about finances and worrying about our retirement and worrying about toilet paper and you know, if they see that, then they're going to learn anxiety, fear, you know, not trust. I was having a conversation with my boys. I have 3 kids, an adult daughter and then twin boys that are 17. And over dinner last night, we were talking about the economy and how the stock market affects, you know, I was telling them about my retirement account and you know, it was kind of telling them how it had dropped and they were both, oh my goodness. And And I said, that's not where our security is. I mean, I'm certainly not happy about the fact that my retirement has lost money, but we're not going to get all up in arms about that. God will provide for us one way or another. And so I think in what we demonstrate to our kids, whether or not we're showing faith and assurance and confidence during these times, they're probably going to learn more from our reactions and actions than they do from what we tell them.
Yeah. They learn more from our lives than from our lips.
That's exactly right.
Surely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is there any way that we can kind of practice some tools that might be helpful to manage when those anxieties just seem overwhelming? Is there anything practical advice that you can give for people to, hey, these are some things that you can do on your own?
I think something that's really helpful is being intentional in, I'm going to reach out to somebody and encourage them. I want to check in with somebody, a friend that I know is really struggling. She can't leave. She has little kids. My sisters and I making a point to call my mom and my aunt, calling Sam's parents, trying to think through who needs encouragement, who needs some type of touch today to enter into their world, to laugh with, to find a way to move out, up and out, as opposed to, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be consumed with, I don't like how things have changed.
Yeah.
You know.
I think a couple things that come to my mind is one, we can do what I just did there. We can take a few deep breaths and kind of use the common grace of air in our bodies to recharge my body with oxygen, and take a few deep breaths when you can feel the panic button kind of going off a little bit. Then I think another just real practical thing is Thanksgiving and gratitude. Thanksgiving, I mean, if you really think about it, you could name 25 things in 3 minutes that you are thankful about, or that you can be grateful to God about. And so Thanksgiving, and then expressing thanks and gratitude to other people. It's interesting, the world of positive psychology has discovered what Paul and the Psalms taught us about a long time ago, which is that Thanksgiving and gratitude boost our happiness. They boost our sense of peace. They boost our joy. And so I think, once again, using the body as a kind of pivot point to take a few deep breaths, recharge with some oxygen, and then point your heart up to God. Say, Lord, even though this is tough, I have 2 arms and 2 legs. I have a cupboard full of food. I've got all the clothes I could ever need. I have, the sky is beautiful out there today. And then also expressing gratitude, thanksgiving to other people.
I think that's so good. I think about something that Dr. Williams said earlier, just about how we get inside of our own heads, and just that practical tip of, not just reaching out for the point of encouragement, but also reaching out when we're struggling and talking about that with someone. It's amazing how much sense my arguments make in my head until I voice them to someone else. And then often as I'm saying them, I'm realizing to myself, that's really crazy what I just said, isn't it? Like, they haven't even had to confront me on what I've thought. Like, once it comes out of my mouth, I heard a guy say one time, my mind is like a bad neighborhood. I should never go in there alone. Right? Like, just get outside of your own head. Reach out and have a conversation with someone and just say, I'm really struggling. Like, this is what I'm thinking, and, help me think differently, and so to reach out for some help. I think that's a really good one, and something that Dr. Williams talks a lot about in his classes in counseling is distraction's a great thing. Just do something, you know.
Go for a walk. Water the plants.
Yeah. Go out and shoot the basketball, play a board game with your kids. You don't have to, having a deep therapeutic conversation's good, but sometimes going out and shooting a basketball for 15 minutes is just as good. It just gets my mind away from kind of that ramping up of always thinking these negative things.
I think one of the unique things about this is that, sometimes we go through hard things, but there might be, our whole family's going through it, or, a unique demographic is going through it. But this is affecting literally the whole world is in this boat. And so I think that's one of the unique things to build off of, is that we we don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
We don't have to.
Yeah.
We're all bearing the same burden,
right.
and so we can encourage one another. And as God is teaching us, we can teach one another. And so I think that in and of itself is probably the top of my list for something to be thankful for, that I'm not alone on this island dealing with this, and but I have brothers and sisters in Christ who are walking alongside that with me.
And you think about maybe even how the needle is going to move on a lot of things in our culture as a result of what we're going through. No doubt this is difficult, and our hearts grieve for families that are suffering and because of the isolation, and there's all sorts of things that there's the jobs that are being lost, the economy, and there are lots of things for us to bemoan. I think about the number of churches in our world who've known for a long time they needed a way to reach their senior adults and their shut-ins, but they've never had the time or taken the time to do that. And now suddenly resources have become available to them. They've gotten help from other people. And so now we've got churches that run 100 people on a Sunday who never dreamed that they would be offering a simulcast or an online message. And now they're doing it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of things that change about the way we do ministry and the way we live life. And a lot of those things I think are going to be really good for us. And so celebrating some of those things is another way that we could say, let's not just look at all the bad stuff that's happening, but there are some good things that I think are happening as a result of the virus.
Yeah, and speaking of the bad stuff, and it's a little bit of hyperbole, but if your distraction is a screen, 24-hour news on your phone, on your computer, TV, I'd suggest you find a healthier distraction than watching 8 hours of news or viewing 8 hours of news a day. It is important to stay, up to date and what's going on. That's a good thing. But I think that with the 24-hour news cycle, that it doesn't serve our hearts nor the mission of God well.
Absolutely. And I know, so for some of our folks, some of the people that all of us are doing counseling, so a lot of the people that we meet with on a regular basis are going into this pandemic with different kinds of concerns and issues that they're dealing with and struggles that they're dealing with. What are some things that can be maybe an encouragement or maybe some practical things about how to manage day-to-day life to help maintain a good mental health practices?
I think get outside would be a good start. Like we're saying here, get out of your head and into your life, into the mission. Get back in touch with your five senses. We can open God's Word. We can read a psalm. I think especially going to passages. We all have passages that just speak to our hearts, and I think we go to those passages. I go over to my wife and say, "Hey, baby, let's pray," and I put my arm around her and we just pray. But I think it's a great question. How is it that we put this down to where the rubber meets the road?
I think establishing some new routines and some new rhythms, instead of longing for the way things used to be and trying to make a square peg fit in a round hole. It's been a great opportunity for us to reevaluate, kind of what we spend our evenings doing when we're all home, and because now the kids are home all the time, and so we're establishing some new rhythms and some new practices of things, that we do, and I think being willing to consider those is an important thing, and establishing those rhythms in such a way that they make us feel better instead of making us feel worse.
Yeah, one of the things I've told a lot of people, because I learned this when I was staying at home with my kiddos. You get up, you take a shower, you get dressed every day. This isn't a snow day. That's just one day that we can kind of do whatever, and who cares if you're in your pajamas all day. But this is an ongoing thing, and we need to have a sense of purpose for the day, that I'm not just sitting on the couch all day, but I'm doing something, and it looks different. It's a new routine, right? So it looks different from when I maybe get up and go to work or get up and go to class. But there's still a purpose to my day. And there is a task that God has set before me for today, and that's what I need to do. And so I'm going to be ready for that. And I think that that's going to have a big impact for people in the way that they view every day. And so it's something I've kind of just encouraged a lot of people to think about.
I think it's also important too to remind people that it is different. You know, and your different is going to look different for what it used to look like and what it looks like from other people. So I think when you get online and you see, well, somebody has been able to teach all 8 of their children how to bake bread and play the violin in their spare time.
That's so good.
And you have barely been able to keep track and put clothes on your children or even know where they all are in the house. I mean, you have to lower your expectations. There will always be those kids that are playing the violin and making bread, you know, by noon. And it doesn't look like that for you. And so you have those days where, okay, we are going to survive today.
That's okay.
And that's okay.
So good. It's so good. To that point about looking at a screen, looking at social media, and feeling like you have to keep up with what everybody else is doing, which then just contributes to the more anxiety about not only am I now dealing with the anxiety of the virus, but now I'm dealing with the anxiety of I'm not the best parent that I should be because I'm not doing what that person on Instagram, is doing, and it sets this false sense of expectation and then drives the anxiety even more.
Yeah, that's right. The Facebook family is not a real family.
That's right.
No.
I think also that there are many ways that we can, focus in on, okay, this is what's before me today, and all the changes that you all are talking about, and there is a lot of change. Some of us love change, and it's kind of interesting and exciting, and I'm not bored anymore. I've kind of been having a good time over the last week or two. That may sound strange, but for other people who are much more accustomed to routines and regularity and really prefer predictability, so for some people, this is a really hard transition. And others, we're all built differently. And so I think it's a good time for us to really try to be patient with the differences among us. That's right, baby?
Cool.
Right.
Yes.
And Sam, this, so anxiety and depression, they're kind of two sides of the same coin, and you're going to have those individuals that because they're not doing all those things in their home, and they can't go out and they can't go to work and they can't do this and they can't do that. I mean, they're going to start to feel some depression. They're going to start to feel down, and nothing in their world has nothing about them is any different, but their circumstances have changed, and so now situationally it's driving this anxiety and this depression. That's getting even more. And if they're individuals that really like consistency and not change, that's going to be a lot harder for them. It's really going to be harder for them.
So I haven't been bored for 2 weeks.
Right.
His non-boredom is my discombobulation. I like order and I like schedules, and I think it was very stressful, I know for me, in the build up to it. But when it finally, are we going to have the women's retreat? Are we going to have this? Is this going to happen? Is it not? That to me was so stressful. And once all the things came down and said, it's over, it's off, we're not doing it. There really was a sense of, okay, things are really different. And I know for me personally, some people in my neighborhood, I put my Christmas tree up. I didn't put a lot of Christmassy things on it, but I put the lights and bright colored ornaments and this reminder to be an encouragement to neighbors when they drive by. But also this reminder to me, God, this is a different time. And I need the reminder of Emmanuel, God with us. And so every time I see it, it reminds me, we're in a different time right now. And God is still with us. It's very different. I mean, I've never put my Christmas tree up in March, right? It's a different time.
So kind of playing off of the differences of a husband and wife, a lot of families have one or both parents working from home, one or both spouses working from home. So that is a lot of time in a small space and trying to get things done in a different way. What are some things that we can kind of help encourage those folks who are maybe starting to maybe get on each other's nerves a little bit and maybe rubbing each other the wrong way? How can we encourage them with this situation?
Day 2 of the seminary being closed, Wendy asked me that morning, my wife Wendy of 27 years, day 2, Wendy said, "When do you think you guys are going back to the office?"
So you're going to be home every day?
I said, "It's been a day." And she was just kidding, whenever she said it. But, I think that whole establishing routine thing, I think that's important. I think a certain amount of distance is okay, in couples, and for folks who are having to work from home. Like, they still have jobs to do, right? And so, whenever I'm at home and I'm having Zoom meetings and, meeting with prospective students and, having that conversation at the outset with my wife and my kids that kind of set the expectations of, here's whenever I'm going to need quiet. Here's whenever I'm going to, here's whenever it's okay to interrupt. Here's times whenever I can break away and we can do things together as a family. Probably the biggest tip that I give couples during any kind of stressful time is just simply over-communicate. Like, don't assume anything. Just over-communicate. Here's when I'm going to leave. Here's when I'm coming back. This is when I need to do this. This is when I need help here. When you're around each other a lot, it gets really easy to make a lot of assumptions about what's happening. And when you start making assumptions, somebody gets disappointed and you don't live up to someone else's expectations, and the next thing you know, husbands and wives are at odds with one another. So simply over-communicate in a healthy way, with foresight. I just want to make you aware, like, I'm not going to be able to be home until here, or I'm going to have to step out of the house for this amount of time. Those types of things you can head off a lot of potential conflict that was coming merely because you communicated better.
It's a good time to practice patience and mercy. Maybe we ought to read 1 Corinthians 13 a few more times in these days.
I was reading Ken Sande's book for a presentation I was doing, his book on the Peacemaker, and I can't remember if it was the preface or some of the opening pages where he talked about peacemaking isn't a skill, it's an attitude or it's a lifestyle. So over dinner last night we were having the conversation because we're in this small space, we're all around each other all the time, and so we just had the conversation over dinner about we want to be a peaceful family, and those are choices that we make about how we relate to one another. We want to extend a life of graciousness to give each other the benefit of the doubt. I teach all my couples in marriage counseling, the letters AGI, assume good intentions. Like, no matter what happens when you're, when you get disappointed in something, assume that your wife, your kids, your husband, your dad, mom, whoever it is, assume that they had the best of intentions in what they did. It may not have come out. It may not come out that way. It may not have come across that way. But assume that they had the best intentions. They may not have had the best intentions, but more oftentimes than not, they probably really did have good intentions, but we didn't give them the benefit of the doubt. The old saying goes that we want to be judged on our intentions, but we want to judge other people on their behavior, right? Yeah. Extend that intention thing to everybody and say, I'm going to judge them on what they wanted to do, not actually what they did.
Well, this has been really great. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for being a part of this conversation. I hope that this is going to be helpful for our families and our community. I just want to end on a reminder of the hope that we have. One of my favorite passages to go to is Psalms 46. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we do not fear though the earth give way, or though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea. And I think that in this time, there's a lot that is moving around us and crumbling around us. But we remember that our hope is in God, and remember that He is unchanging and He is unmoving. And so I appreciate you all being here and reminding us all of the good news and the hope that we have in Christ.